Hi.
All right. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of our webinar on pursuing a career in international law. Today, we have an episode on arbitration institutions, and we would like to introduce our panelist, Aldio. Thank you for
Hi.
being here
Thank you
with
for having
us.
me.
Let's display your wondrous CV first.
It's nothing actually.
Okay, so right now, Aldio is a senior international case counsel at the Asian International Arbitration Center in Kuala Lumpur. So let's start with a little bit of background on what you do on a daily basis at AIAC. Is
Sure,
there a certain job description or anything?
sure. So, as Josephine mentioned, I am a senior international case counsel. So I'm a case counsel. So just to be clear, I'm not an arbitrator. I'm a case counsel because people got mixed up between a practicing arbitrator, practicing lawyer in arbitration, as well as case counsel. So as a case counsel, we do not have a client per se. We are here to administer cases. Our client is our users, is the public. And then the job description of the case counsel is actually different in each of the institution because in
Okay.
of the institution they provide different type of services. So for example, in AIC, we actually have two kind of function. First is that we administer cases. So in AIC, even though our name is Asian International Arbitration Center, but we to be known not only as a center for arbitration, but Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution because we actually provide other type of ADR services such as
Okay.
mediation, domain name dispute resolution, and also arbitration. So that's only about case administration. So when people ask me, Aldio, is your job boring because you only administer cases? No, because our job here at AIC, we are here not only to administer cases, because we have our second function, which is to serve the interest to the public. Now, this is where our role as the teacher of ADR services come into the picture. This is where our role as the leading legislative amendment also come into the picture. This, for example, this morning, I think I checked Josephine. I told her that, Joe, I don't think I can make it today because I had a meeting with Malaysian government. We were having a meeting to have this COVID-19 Act, and then we were being consulted with regard to the part of the ADR services. I told her that I might not be able to make it because the meeting was a bit prolonged. So that's only a glimpse of our function. You know, we also talk with the government that, you know what, if you want to amend Arbitration Act, this is the provision. If you want to amend Mediation Act, this is the provision. And if you want to have COVID-19 Act, then this is our position.
So we can kind of say that your institution holds a key role in the legislation of the country as well. Would you
Yes,
be able to say that?
correct. Like for example, in the recent amendment of the Arbitration Act, we also proposed certain amendment. We proposed for Malaysia to adopt the UNCITRAL model law legislation, and then we also proposed a lot of features like third-party funding and a lot of stuff. So it's actually a very fun and dynamic work because every day is a new stuff, and then it's never only about one case. It's about a lot of stuff, and then you're not working for some evil corporation. Like
That's right.
you're working like it impact a lot of people, and I think that's that's something that if I woke up and I'm working on something that I am passionate about because what I'm doing is actually it can change people's life through ADR. So
All right.
that's a glimpse of my job
That's a
description.
very interesting job description because it's not like particularly you don't just read the cases that enter, but you're also helping with the legislation of the country. So I'm sure that must be a very it's a new thought for most people. I think when you think arbitration center, you think what you do is just help with ADR literally, but then it's not always the case, right? As you explained.
Correct.
All right. So if I may ask, when did you start having the interest in like practicing arbitration per se in an arbitration institution? Did it come from when you did certain activities in university, or when you studied a certain like topic in university, and then it sparked your interest in private international law, particularly arbitration? Would you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, it's actually very interesting. This is something that actually I have never shared to even my closest friends, because I don't think they will be interested, but since you're asking, so I'm going to share it to you anyway. So before I answer that question, allow me to explain first whether doing law is something that I choose from my undergraduate program.
Okay.
You heard a lot of stories about lawyer. They wanted to change the world. They wanted to make the world a better place. That's why they become a lawyer. So that it wasn't the case for me, because when I was in high school, I actually wanted to become a psychologist.
Oh, okay.
I was really obsessed into becoming a psychologist, and I was this close to enroll myself into a psychology major in one of the university in Jakarta. But then, as you know, my title is SH, not SPSC, so that plan didn't work out. I thought that my passion was in psychology, but it didn't work out. So I got admitted into the Faculty of Law UGM. And then at first, I have to be honest, it was really hard. It was really hard for me because I didn't see it coming, like I never thought of seeing myself sitting and studying law when I was in high school.
It was, sorry to cut you off. So it was not really your passion in the beginning to actually study law.
It wasn't.
Okay.
Law wasn't my passion.
But I guess the love developed, right, after that?
Right. So there's also a story behind that. So after so many trials of failures, after so many stages of struggles, I found myself a new passion, which is arbitration. And why I found this was because of my participation to moot court arbitration. I participated into 5 moot court arbitration. It was twice, FDI once, and then maritime law arbitration moot twice. So what I'm trying to tell you, Joe, and also the other audience, is that sometimes you just cannot wake up in the morning and then you realize that, oh, my passion is law. Sometimes it didn't happen like that. Sometimes passion is a product of perseverance. It's a product of many trials or failures. So if you're watching this webinar now, and then if you're doubting yourself whether doing law is something that you're passionate with, finding yourself you're struggling, it's okay. Let me tell you that it's okay. You are on process, and just embrace the process, and you will be fine.
Yeah. So you would say that there was not a certain moment like where you literally decided, okay, I want to practice arbitration. It was more of the accumulation of all the experiences you had through the mooting. I may recap. Correct. Is that right?
Correct. So once I find my liking in arbitration, I know that this is something that I want to make a living out of it. This is something that I want to make a career out of it. And here I am. I'm making a career out of it. So,
and doing very well at it too.
I hope so.
All right. So moving on, you've practiced in many different jurisdictions. I think Kuala Lumpur, Hong Kong as well, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. As an Indonesian law graduate, how do you overcome the differences in the regulations? Do you read while you go, or do you study while you go? Because as we know, graduating from an Indonesian university, a lot of what you learn is very Indonesian law based. You don't really get the exposure to the international law except when you moot, of course. So what are the skills that you picked up throughout university? What legal knowledge is useful? The things that you learned throughout university that was actually relevant in your present practice? Yes.
So the things that I picked up during my education career, it wasn't really something that I learned substantially. So it wasn't like Artikel 1320 Kuhper, like I didn't practice that here. But what I picked up is, of course, understanding about ADR in Indonesia, because that's something that I have to share back in Hong Kong as well as in Malaysia, because I have to give them perspective that, okay, this is what happened in Indonesia. So it wasn't really that, that criminal procedure, Islamic law a bit in Malaysia, but it's not really something related to ADR because I'm practicing in ADR. But I would say one thing that really benefits me the most is my participation in my extracurricular activities, such as moot court arbitration, and also a lot of stuff that I'm about to share you. So my point is not necessarily the lectures, but the activities outside the campus.
Besides mooting, what other activities were you involved in? If you could tell the future law graduates a little more, now that they're in school, they can probably start following your steps little by little. So if you may share what you did.
Sure. So what I'm about to share is actually not the best way, because there's no one key that fits to all doors.
For sure.
So it's not the best way, but if you want to emulate this approach to your way of life, feel free. So aside from moot court competition, I was also involved in a model United Nations. So I would say MUN is also something that I would really recommend you guys to also try to participate, especially if you want to try your career in international law. Why? First, MUN will be able to enhance your English fluency, because in MUN, unlike in moot court competition, you have to be able to, quick on your feet. Like what happened if some crisis happen? So this is where your fluency will be enhanced. And second, it will also enhance your diplomacy skills. And this will come in hand into so many areas in your life, like the way you negotiate maybe your salary, the way you handle your colleague. So these diplomacy skills will really become handy. So that's why I really recommend you guys to try MUN. The third one is, I would say, is organizational activities. I was, same like Jojo, I was an NA for JSUP national rounds. And I think it also helps me to, to build my ability to teamwork, how to communicate with each other. Because I think people that is currently in industry where human interaction is important, you would agree with me that being smart is not enough. You have to be able to handle people. You have to be able to communicate your argument clearly. And sometimes IP 4.0 is not the answer. So this is where you get and you pick all of the soft skills. So mooting, MUN, and then organizational activities. Lastly is internship program. So if someone asks me whether there's something that I regret not doing or regret not doing more, is internship program. Because I only had 2 internship programs at my pocket when I graduated, and I think that I could have done a lot more. Because in AIAC, for example, we see a lot of interns coming in, and then when we see their resumes are brilliant, especially with people from India. I have no idea why, but they came with their resumes and they have 8 until 10 internship experience. I have no idea how did they manage to do it. But when we are selecting interns, internship experience will put you on the spotlight. So if you can, if you're not doing anything this summer, or if you're not doing anything on the Christmas break, try to find internship program.
We actually have a question from an anonymous attendee. I want to ask how you can work in AIAC and if there's an open recruitment at the moment.
So at the moment,
now that you bring up the topic, yeah.
So I don't think at the moment we are open for case counsel position, but I think we are open for legal interns. So if you would like to know more about working in an institution, please feel free to apply. We actually have a lot of interesting projects in the pipelines to be brought in Indonesian industry. So I will need a lot of Indonesian interns. So please, if you have time, come to our website and then drop your CV and drop your applications. So how did I manage to get into AIAC is actually very unique, because I was the youngest case counsel ever, and I'm the first Southeast Asian to be employed. Now,
I think, we would like to ask, like, what qualifications do you think is like important to have when you're about to enter an arbitration institution?
Okay, so that question is actually very complicated, because it depends on which jurisdiction, because you also have to think about expat law, because in Malaysia, if you want to be expat, there are certain requirements. And at the time I was offered, I was very lucky because the requirement was actually not that high, but now they require like 5 or 3 years working experience. So if you are looking for a career in an arbitration institution, I think first you have to take a look at the expat law. What is the requirement? And second, of course, once you pass that expat standard, most likely institution will look for someone that has experience in arbitration. So this is where your experience in moot arbitration will come into play. if you have a moot competition experience, it will really be useful. Like for example, I think one of the main reasons why I got accepted in Hong Kong, why I got accepted in AIAC, it was because of my accumulation of those experiences. And also your interest in arbitration.
So in general, to say that mooting did not help you is like like for sure it helped you so much. It probably boosted up your career.
Correct. And also, if I can add, in AISC, we also see a lot of interns from other jurisdictions. We have interns from UK, from Russia, from US, Australia. We have a lot of interns coming to AISC. You can clearly tell people who has mooting background, because if you ask them to do some research, they will produce a very meticulous research with footnotes, with resources. But if you ask people that
structure as well, right?
Yeah, correct, structure. If you ask people that has no mooting background, then they will say, this is my research, and that's it. And that's a trash. So mooting background will really, really help you. So if you're still doubting yourself, please enter into moot competition, enter to JSOP, enter to arbitration competition. So yeah, I really recommend that.
We have a question from the floor, which asks regarding what you think is, do you think English fluency is important when you're about to enter a moot? What is your take on this?
All right, so most of the competition, they have this rules that says that no discrimination. Just because you're not fluent in English, just because you have a thick Japanese accent. That it's a reduction of your scores. So you do not have to be really fluent. I think judges who are familiar with the rules, they will understand if you have inherent accent, so that's fine. But fluency in terms of grammar, in terms of your reading skills, it will be required. It will be really, really required. Because in mooting, as you know, especially in an international competition setting, you have no idea what the other opponent is going to say. So if you do not have the fluency of English to structure your argument, then you're dead.
Yeah. Pretty much sums up why it's important to be able to speak a little bit of English, of course, when you start mooting, but then it will further develop after, which is okay as well, right?
It's also one of the reasons why I also recommend you guys to try MUN. So if you are in that university where the selection is really tough, and then you cannot get in because you have a problem with English fluency, maybe what you can do is that you can train your English fluency first with through MUN, and after like 3 or 5 MUNs, maybe you will have that confidence.
We have a lot of questions regarding mooting actually in our from the floor, particularly Willem Sivis. Do you think it is a relevant stepping stone to work in an arbitration institution, or did the other moots have other impacts? Maybe it taught you different things between the different moots that you joined. Maybe you can share a little bit about what each taught you.
Yes. So arbitration community is actually very small. In Asia, in Indonesia, is very small. And then once people mention this moot, they will know. So if your resume has Vismut stamp on it, then most likely you will get recognized. So this is why, yes, Vismut competition is actually very important. I really encourage you to get into Vismut. But as you mentioned, Josephine, there are other moot arbitration competition available to you, such as FDI, Maritime Moot. So this is not the way, it's not the only way. There are a lot of ways where you can get exposed with mooting arbitration, but and it also depends on your university, because the way your university selects your delegation will also be different. But if you can, get yourself enrolled in Vismut, because they are the one that has the oldest track record.
Yep, I agree. And okay, let's get back to what you do on a day-to-day basis at AIAC. If I may ask, do you have a team of people working with you, and how many people? How do you manage between what they do as you're a senior there? So yes. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
So our legal team consisting of, I think, 13 people, and then we have a deputy head of legal. So my boss, I have 2 bosses. I have 1 Russian boss, I have 1 Malaysian boss, and then the senior international case counsel, we have 3 senior, and then I think we have 6 case counsels, and then each of us have a different nationality. The reason being is that we want to, we want to have a very diverse team in our legal department, so that the more diverse we are, the better quality that we deliver. So that's our principle.
That's right.
And then the way we work is that each of the case counsel, they administer different types of alternative dispute resolution services. But in AIAC, there are only 2 people that administer all of them. I am one of them. I'm one of the case counsel who administer 4 types of ADR services. So it's very challenging because, anytime you can get your phones ringing, and then it's one of the parties, and then they have to, they have to be updated. What is the status of this case, number 6776, and then you just have to, be able to say, oh, the update is that the tribunal is currently drafting the award. Please bear with us. We will keep you updated. So yeah, you have to be able to multitask.
So you would say that the biggest challenge in what you do is coordinating between the team. Is that right? Or is there other challenges that comes with it? More, maybe like a more substantive challenge, the difference in, you can explain a little more?
One of them is, of course, communication with the team, because each of the case counsel, they might hold a different role. For example, I'm responsible to appoint the arbitrator. So if there is a case coming in and then they need to appoint arbitrator, I will have to analyze the case. And then once I analyze the case, I will tell them that, oh, according to the amount of dispute, according to the expertise required, I think Mr. X, Miss Y, Miss Z is better. So once they
have you ever had, sorry to cut you off, have you ever had like an arbitrator that's not independent and impartial? Any cases where there was a mistake in probably like pointing out an arbitrator?
No. So far, our is sterling. But of course, you will see a lot of people trying to drag the arbitration process. So they are trying to give unmeritorious challenges. Mm-hmm. They will fight tooth and nail to drag the process. So they will say that, oh, Josephine, you're biased because you are in the same religious circle with my wife, for example, which is nonsense. So it happened, but we never actually appointed biased or not partial arbitrator. So yes, communication is very important because each of the case counsel holds a different role. So if one people fail to, to deliver their job, then it's domino effect. Everyone will be affected.
What would you think was the hardest challenge that you had to go throughout your time working in AIAC, and how did you overcome it?
I think my biggest challenge, actually not my biggest challenge, but the AIAC's biggest challenge in doing our work would be about to disseminate and spreading the awareness about alternative dispute resolution, because it's actually one of our mission. Because as you know, not many people are aware about the presence of the ADR. So this is why we have to go to law school to teach them. I have to go to an island and have to teach them about ADR. So education awareness is one of the challenges. And second one would be, I think that will be the biggest challenges, like to educate people that, this is the proper way to do ADR and do not stray away from that.
Very, very interesting. And let's talk about your work-life balance.
Yes.
How is it like working in an arbitration institution? Is it like the law firm where you have more than a 9-to-5, basically at least 14 working hours? That's on a good day, and then on the weekend sometimes you work. What is it like working in an arbitration institution?
So once again, it depends on each of the institutions, but then AIAC, we do not practice human slavery. So 8:30 until 5:30, but of course there were some instances where you have to stay a little bit if you have project, if your case are being overloaded. But most of the times it's a very work and life balance. I do not have any problem with working, going home. I was actually because I was an intern at Ginting and Exotic Putro, so I am aware of the crazy working hours that law firms actually implore you to do. But working in Hong Kong, working in Kuala Lumpur, in both institutions, I realized that they do not have such insane working hour. So if you're looking for work and life balance, work in an
All right, all right. And does that include you a lot of traveling time, or do you travel a lot to different arbitration institutions when there are different cases in other places, or do you usually just stay in Kuala Lumpur and have your clients come?
So, so that is the primary way, because we are the center, so people actually go to us to have
That's right.
hearing or to ask for procedural guidelines. So most of the times they will go to us. But another benefit of working in an institution is that most of the time, well, not most of the times, but you will be required to represent your institution in a conference, in UN. Like, I think before this pandemic hit us, we were invited to go to Vienna to attend one of the UN working group, because they were trying to revise the investment instruments, and then AIAC is invited to deliver our view on investment arbitration. And that's only like one of the types. We are actually being invited to many conferences where we have to speak. So it's actually a very, I would say, very ideal job, I think I would say, because you can travel with your company, and then you can also represent your institution, and it's a work and life balance.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And we have a more substantive question coming from the audience. The person is asking regarding the enforcement of an ADR. Basically, has there ever been a case where the parties refuse to accept the award? And how did you deal with it?
So in Malaysia, if they want to enforce the award, they have to go to the High Court. So they do not have to go through AIAC. So we are not aware of any grounds. We are not aware of any reasons why they are challenging the award. However, we are aware that there are parties who are trying to, to not enforce the award based on the grounds of public policy, based on the grounds that the arbitration agreement was not valid, or the process of the arbitration was not constructed in a way that it was agreed before. So yes, it happened, but once again, since we are not the body who decides whether this award is enforced or not, I cannot share you more than that. But it happens. It happens because strategies, and it's also one of the way the lawyers can get the money, because they have to try to, disgorge.
Prolong the case as well, right?
Yeah. So
okay. And what do you think about chasing an LLM degree on international dispute resolution? It's becoming more of a relevant, I would say, major in today's era. So what do you think about it? Do you think it's worth it? And if it is, why?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that with the very typical typical lawyer answer, which is it depends. It depends on your career. But doing LLM in international dispute resolution, of course, as you said before, it's now becoming a trend. But let me offer you another perspective. If you already participated into so many arbitration competitions or arbitration exposures in your university, it will become a question whether it's worth it for you to spend more money and more time again doing that for your master. Because whatever that you're going to learn in your master, you would probably have already learned it before.
And probably even practiced it before, right? You would say, because from the mooting and from other experiences.
Correct. And second is that if you really want to practice in a dispute resolution or arbitration, arbitration is not a standalone expertise. Arbitration needs to be embedded with another expertise, such as construction, maritime, commercial arbitration. So if you already have expertise in arbitration, then you can ask yourself whether you want to spend your money and time learning something that you have learned, or are you going to learn something that you have not learned before, which means that learning maybe
business
action or business could be something that's more feasible and more worth it for you. But if you are really keen to learn about, you haven't learn anything about it during your undergraduate degree, then maybe taking that as a master would be a feasible option for you.
All right, that's a very interesting perspective that we don't usually get on a day-to-day basis. Usually we hear people just saying, just do whatever you want, do what you think you would practice in.
Yeah.
And to hear that your perspective, it's a very interesting way to look at it. So is there anything else you would like to add, maybe regarding your experience? If not, I will close with the question on what you would like to say at the very end.
I think we can proceed with the questions first. Maybe along the way, I'm going to add something along the way. If you have any more questions, I'm more happy to answer that.
Okay, I've gone through most of the questions from the floor. So maybe let's just talk a little bit more about the fact that previously you lived in Indonesia and you moved all the way to Malaysia to work in the Arbitration Institution, is that right?
Correct.
Why did you choose to work in an arbitration institution in Malaysia instead of probably the one in Indonesia?
Okay, it's a very interesting question. So before my term in Malaysia, I was an intern in Hong Kong, and then I was being advised by my mentor that if you really want to learn about arbitration, you have 3 ways of doing it. First, you can practice, practicing arbitration as a lawyer. You can either start your career as an academia. You can teach arbitration. You can teach dispute resolution, and then you can write journals about arbitration or ADR. Or the third way is that you can start your career in an institution. So I understand that the first option is intentional. I think most people or most students are under the view that once they graduate, then it's the ideal pathway to secure your job in a law firm and spend maybe like 1 or 2 years there. And then you can either continue your practicing in a law firm, or you can jump as an in-house counsel, or you can jump to any other department that you like. And I thought that not many people have done the institution option. And then I like to live on the edge, and then approach to life have been very unconventional, and I found it very interesting. So I decided to kickstart my career through institution. And then I was advised that if you want to start in an institution, start in a jurisdiction where it is still developing, because it offers you the most learning curves. Because
and I think you would also have sort of more of a bigger voice to convey your opinions and to actually make a change, the kind of change that maybe you would like to create,
Right. So so that is why I was so glad that I made that choice. I went to Kuala Lumpur, and then I had the opportunity to contribute to the amendment of certain act of arbitration, mediation, and then also Construction Industry Payment Act, and recently COVID-19 Act, and then a lot of other projects that I'm currently under my pocket. So it has been a really interesting journey for me. I learned a lot about arbitration, and then my interest and my passion has been, sparked even more.
Okay. And we have another question coming from the floor, which asks, considering the discrepancy in the standard of arbitration in Indonesia and Malaysia, bracket in terms of the arbitration system, do you think Indonesia may be able to reach the same standard as Malaysia? And if so, what could minimize the discrepancies?
So you're right that the requirement of being an arbitrator in Indonesia and Malaysia is very different. Like, for example, right now, I cannot be an arbitrator in Malaysia because I think in Indonesia, because in Indonesia, I think in order to become arbitrator, at least you have to be 35 years old, and I'm still 24, so I cannot be. But in Malaysia, as long as you passed certain qualifications, you can be appointed. So this discrepancy can only be fixed with amendment of legislation. As you know, the Undang-Undang Arbitrase in Indonesia, it's
very old and outdated, I would say.
And then some people have flew the notion whether it's the right moment to the Arbitration Act, because arbitration or ADR is a very fast industry. Every
That's
year
right.
there's a new trend. Every year there is something new, and then if you do not have the legislation to cater or to contain those updates, then you're outdated. And if you're outdated, then no parties will want to go to arbitration to arbitrate.
Again, maybe I'll get more into the substantive side of arbitration. Would you say Indonesia should adopt the model law?
I think they should, because in order to become attractive as the seat of arbitration, there is a research by Queen Mary University of London, and then they have this research that what makes the parties choose certain seat of arbitration, and then one of the factor is that the legislation should adopt something that is well known,
Universal.
universal, and then model law is something universal, something that is familiar. So if you adopt, then I hope it will attract more international parties to go to arbitration, and then hopefully Indonesia will become the emerging seat of arbitration.
Yes, and we do have. I'm sorry if like we go between topics, but we have a question on how you secured your internship in an arbitration institution during your time as a student.
So I think I was still in my 7th or 6th semester, and then I just Googled. I had no connection whatsoever. So if you know, some people secure their job because of their daddy's companies. Like I have to start from zero. So I have to Google. I have to keep searching. I can see international dispute resolution or international arbitration internship. And then I had a lot of features in my Google reminder. So, you know, in Google, you can set a reminder, and then if there's certain keyword triggered your keyword, then you'll get an automatic email to your email. So I did that a lot. And then there was this one day where my keyword of international arbitration internship hits the mark, and then I got the notification. It was for
Wow.
I think they were open for that. So I think what I'm trying to tell you is that, you know, sometimes you can start from zero. Sometimes you can start from ground down and then make your way from there. And then it's also the same. It's also the same where I secured my internship at AIAC, because at that time I just searched arbitration center in Asia, and then I know that Kuala Lumpur is one of them, Singapore is one of them. You have one in Korea, and then I just applied. I just applied to all of them, and then I got several interviews, applications, and then I got into AIAC.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about career prospect. In the long run, would you want to be an arbitration lawyer or arbitrator, or are you happy with the arbitration institution as a senior case counsel? What do you think the prospect for the long run would be for you?
So in the long haul, I would like to become the president of Indonesian Arbitral Institution. Could be BANI or could be some institution in the next 50 years. Maybe when I will be like 60, 70 years old, I'll become the president. I hope I'll become that president, because I realized that work in the institution, it will really, it will really change people's life, and then you can really make a lot of changes if you're working in an institution. So that's something that I wanted to do in a long haul, but that's something that I hope I can achieve in 50, 60 years. So in that 50 or 60 years, I wanted to practice either in Indonesia or other region, because even though I did a little bit of practicing of arbitration in institution, I understand that I also have to get that perspective of becoming a lawyer, practicing arbitration in a law firm, because I think it would be quite an interesting perspective that I would acquire. But that's also an option. And then I also wanted to get a LLM if I get the money, if I get the scholarships. And then after that, I will see where the wind will take me. But I think for now, yeah.
Regarding your perspective on the LLM major per se, what would you like to take as an LLM as a major for your LLM in
Yeah,
that
so
case?
I was actually already being offered with a LLM study in New York, but then this pandemic happened, so that's not an option. So, but I was planning to take international business regulation because international business regulation and arbitration, because not only that I will learn about arbitration, I'll also learn about the business side. So that's something that I actually wanted to do. I'm going to avoid doing something purely about arbitration from my LLM because I have learned a lot of arbitration during my career. So if I take another LLM in arbitration, I'm going to learn something that I have studied and I have learned. So that's something that I would like to avoid. So I'm gonna do some LLM, which is very substantive, maybe like maritime or.
What's the benefit of choosing a career in arbitration as an arbitrator in particular, in your opinion?
Okay, so if you're a lawyer, you will know that the rightest person in this world is your client. That the other party is wrong. There is no one else that is right aside from my client. So that's your perspective if you're becoming a lawyer. But if you are working in an institution, you will have this bird's eye view because you
look from different perspectives, right?
Correct. You can have perspective from the claimant, from the respondent. You can also have perspective from the arbitrator. Once an arbitrator deliver an award, you can also scrutinize their award so that you also understand what kind of position that the arbitrator is taking. So working in an institution is actually a very good learning curves because not only that you have access to have perspective from the lawyers, you can also have access to understand the perspective coming from the arbitrator. So once later you decide to become either arbitrator or lawyers, you already being exposed of the previous cases of arbitration that you have administered before. You can tell your client that, you know what, in our experience, arbitrators, sometimes they are fair, sometimes they are not. So it's better if we take this slow, something like that.
All right. And I think one last question, if I can ask before we close with the closing remarks.
Yes.
Would be, how effective would you say the presence of Bani is?
Well, I think Bani is doing a very good job. I mean, I cannot say that they are not doing their job. I think everyone in this world is doing their job, and then AIAC is also in a good terms with Bani, and then we actually had a very good initiative in the pipeline to work with Bani this year. I was actually about to go to Jakarta in April to talk about some project, but then of course we have to suspend everything because of this. So yeah, Bani holds a very important role in Indonesia, and I just hope that they keep doing their good job.
And maybe I think there's a lot of more questions coming in all of a sudden. So let's talk more about your internship, your experience in AIAC. Because was it scary to have an internship abroad at like your early 20s? And how long was it? How long was your internship for in Hong Kong and in Malaysia?
Yeah, it was very scary that right now I have PTSD to Hong Kong because when I was in Hong Kong, I live in a student budget. So I actually have to live in a literal coffin, and then I have to share this coffin with other 4 people, you know, because I was living below the poverty line. So if this is the poverty line, I was here, I was down below. And then, but aside from my living condition, it was actually very, it was a very exciting, and it was very a pleasure experience. I think my learning outcomes back in Hong Kong outweighed my PTSD in my working, in my living condition. So it was scary, but then, you know, a good move, nice move, it never be easy. Yep. So just take your leap of faith.
So you would say when you want something worth it, there's a lot of steps that you need to sacrifice, a lot of happiness you need to sacrifice to get there.
Yeah, it's never easy.
All right. So last remarks, closing remarks. We know the current condition, the current COVID-19 situation is not exactly pleasant for most students, especially those graduating this year. Do you have any remarks, anything you would like to say to future law students, to future law school graduates?
Yes.
Any supporting comments, maybe?
Yes. And then my remark is actually a bit controversial. And people that have been working me in ISIL, people that have been working me in UGM, they know me as a very liberal person, and then I like to live on the edge. But I'm willing to be held accountable with this following statement. So if you want to record me by saying this, go ahead. So
All right.
I have a last remark regarding the productivity, because people in social media, and I know that some people in attendees, I know some of you have been telling this in social media because I see your names. So if you meet a lot of people telling you that during this COVID-19 period, you have to be productive. And if you're not productive, then you're lacking of due diligence, or you're lacking of disciplines. So if you stumbled upon these people, right, you can tell them, shame on you, because this time is a very difficult time. Most people, they are experiencing this pandemic in a very different way. And then, although people telling you that we are on the same boat, we are not. Because some people, they are not on a boat. Some people, they are on a cruise ship. Some people, they are on a yacht. They are on a very secure position. And most of us are drowning because we got affected. Most of us, lost their job. Most of us, get maybe our salary cut. So what I'm trying to tell you is that right now, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling that you're not accomplished, if you see people telling you to be productive, it's okay not to be productive, because this time is not a productivity race. If you need to sit back, relax, and then get better, it's okay. It's not wasting time if you put a pause and then taking care of yourself. And
so you would say that this is like, take this time as a time to rest after all the craziness that has been going on. Is that
correct?
Could you sum it up?
Correct. And let me tell you this. You're now watching this webinar. You are going to get better tomorrow than you are today. If that is not an accomplishment, I have no idea what to call that. So you have to be proud of that, and then just relax, take your time. Thank you so much for having me today. And
Thank you.
I managed to get your life a little bit motivated. I hope I had managed to make your day a little bit better. And thank you for having me, Josephine.
Thank you so much for being a panelist and for saying yes to this. And we hope that you were an inspirational figure for everyone who is watching. Well, today we have law students from 18 different universities attending this webinar. We have 2 students from foreign universities, from Groningen and Malaya University in particular. We have 8 law student organizations from different organizations. And then we have 2 institutions, one from a law firm and one from the Denpasar Prosecutor Office. We thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope that this was an inspirational episode, and we thank you, Ka Aldio, for being here, for spending time to talk to us and to tell us a little bit more about your life, basically. Thank you so much.
Stay safe, everyone. Stay safe, stay well. Thank you, Josephine.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.